Hello again, everybody. Zack Attack is here with my UFC 182 review for Saturday, January the 3rd, 2015. Yes, new year. First UFC of 2015. Still trying to get the hang of saying 2015. First event of the year from the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. Now, if you haven't noticed, I have not made a UFC review for pay-per-view in about 8 months because it's tough to go to, because I'm a disc jockey and all, and use ITJ on weekends. So mostly every UFC has been on Saturdays when I'm gigging the pay-per-views. I've seen some Fox Sports cards, but not the pay-per-views reviews. I only make reviews for pay-per-views, not for the Fox Sports events or Fox events. If they suffice me, I'll review them. But I'm missing those lately too. So of all UFC events to finally see for the first time in months is this one. Now, the main event lived up to most of the hype that it was expected of it. As you saw, my main event subtitle, of course, a big. I thought it was very close, but I think, I'll talk about it later on. But despite a great main event, the undercard and the main card was terrible. I'm sorry, the main event saved the pay-per-view, in my opinion. The undercard was just not a lot of excitement. Like the first 4 fights, like they had some okay action. Okay, decent action, but not much excitement. The first fight tonight kind of had the closest thing to it. But the rest of the card was just okay. Until the main event. I'll give this pay-per-view a 6.5 out of 10. Just because of the fact that there was no other good fights besides the main event on the main card. You know what I mean? The first 4 fights was just average to okay. The main event was it was a war as expected between both these great fighters, of course, Bonesy and Daniel Cormier. Now, let's get on with the card. First fight of the night in the welterweight division, we had Hector Lombard taking on Josh Burkman. Now, this fight, out of the 4 undercard fights on the main card, this is the closest thing to being anything remotely exciting. There was some decent close calls, some decent action in this fight, some decent excitement, at least some excitement when it comes to anything coming close to being exciting in the 4 main undercard fights. But it kind of ended up being in my mind, Hector should have finished. That's the thing. Hector Lombard was more aggressive in this fight, but he should have won by a knockout or something. There was no knockouts in the entire card. The main card, everything went the distance. There was no finishes the entire night. Everything went unanimous tonight in the main card. So, and this was the start of it. Because in my mind, Hector couldn't finish Josh Burkman. Josh had some okay shots in, but Hector had more of the aggressive. He had him down in the corner a few times. He had a couple close calls, but he just couldn't finish him. He just couldn't finish Josh Burkman. He just pounded on him for the rest of the fight. He got the win by unanimous decision just because he couldn't finish. Should have ended earlier. Instead, just went all 3 rounds because, like I said, Hector couldn't finish. 2.5 out of 5. It was just okay. It was decently exciting, but not as much exciting as the main event was. Now on to our next fight. In the flyweight division, we have Horiguchi. I hope I pronounced that name right. Taking on Gaudinot. Now, this fight was just okay. Like I'm gonna probably repeat like a broken record. And this is what I say a lot on some of my UFC reviews, pay-per-views, that the matches, this fight included, decent action, no excitement. Decent stand up there, but mostly they were on the ground a little bit. But it was like not much excitement. It's one of those, like some of these fights were like who's been in the round, because it was just kind of stagnant. Some of these, but you couldn't tell who was winning because there was no one guy in full control. And that's what this fight was. These flyweight guys, they can't beat each other up. They knock each other out because they're not as strong as the heavyweights or light heavyweights. They're like 135. They can't beat each other up. They can't beat each other. I'm not saying they can't beat each other up. They can't finish each other. It's like the first round. The first fight, they can't finish each other because they don't have enough strength to get the knockout finish. Sometimes flyweights do, but not all of them. And the victory went to Horiguchi by unanimous decision. Like I said, everything went unanimous. the main card. 2.0. Just because the fight was just okay to me. You know. Then the next fight. Brad Tavares taking on Nate the Great Marquart. I haven't seen Nate Marquart fight in a while, so it's kind of cool to see him. But in my mind, he got outmatched by Brad Tavares. I think Nate looked out of shape because Brad was more aggressive in this fight. You know, but it was kind of one side and not much excitement. You know, and the guys were getting booed because they were like mostly on the ground most of the fight. You know, or was that the Cerrone fight against? I think they were both on the ground. But but Tavares was more the aggressive the fight against him and Nate. You know, like Nate had some okay shots in, but mostly Tavares was mostly on the and once again like the other two fights, Brad couldn't finish Nate. You know, Brad was more aggressive. Okay, takedown, maybe some submission attempts, but I don't remember much about the fight because I was just kind of bored by it. You know, not a lot of kind of boredom. Then mostly on the ground, man hugging. I hate man hugs. Or as I call this fight in most of the I think I call this fight in the co-main. And you probably heard me if you all regular review my UFC reviews. How few I do make. I do make UFC reviews for pay-per-views. I usually use the terms decent action, not much excitement, and also this other term, fight not to lose fights, is when you fight like you don't want to hit each other because you don't want to lose the match. That's what I call fight not to lose fights, and this was one of those. You know, this kick, punch, kick, that was it. You know, not much excitement. Like I said, just decent action, but not much excitement. With Brad Tavares being more of the aggressor and winning the fight by once again, unanimous decision over Nate Marquardt. I think Nate needs to retire. You know, he didn't look good in this fight in my mind. You know, I like Nate. I've seen a couple of his fights, but he did not look good. You know, he was more out of shape than Nate Diaz was for his fight against. When was then? Yeah, Nate Diaz took on somebody. And he was like, almost like against Rafael Dos Anjos, and Nate Diaz was just out of shape and was just not focused. And that's what thing happened to Nate Marquardt. He wasn't focused. He didn't look good. He looked out of shape. In my mind. Either get back in shape or retire. That's my opinion for Nate Marquardt. Now on to our co-main event. By the way, that was in the middleweight division. The fight between Brad and Nate. Now on to the co-main in the lightweight division. Donald Cerrone taking the Cowboy. Donald Cerrone taking on Myles Jury, who's from Michigan, Hazel Park. I live in Washington Township, about maybe an hour from Hazel Park. And I heard that Myles went to the same college as my dad did, Oakland University, community college in Rochester. So I was kind of secretly cheering on Myles, but I knew Cerrone was going to win. And boy, did he dominate. I think there was the only thing like the fight, like the others, decent action, not much excitement. The only closest thing to excitement was during the first round when Myles did get Cerrone down for a submission attempt, but then Cerrone reversed it. And they're mostly on the ground most of the fight. You know, in the third round, Donald finally got some good shots in that. The third round was the closest thing to being somewhat exciting, with Donald getting some good shots in. And sorry to sound like a broken record, but like the other fights, Donald could not finish Myles. You know, he just could not get the finish. You know, he was more aggressive in the fight, and Myles did an okay job, like trying to hold in there, but he got lucky in that first round because I thought he was going to get submitted in that first round. You know, but he never gave up. But Cerrone was on top of him, and he got the victory. Now, Cerrone could get a shot against Pettis, but I think Cerrone needs one more fight in him because this fight he did not win in decisive fashion. This fight did not prove he's worthy of getting a title shot against Pettis. That's the thing. Cerrone needs another dominating performance to prove that he should get another shot against Pettis. Like when I with Robbie Lawler. I think when Robbie Lawler lost the first fight against Hendricks, the first fight after he came back against, I think his first fight back after losing to Hendricks, he won, but he didn't win decisively. Then the second fight he took after losing to Hendricks, he won the fight decisively. He was dominant in that performance, and that match got him the rematch against Hendricks, and as we all know, he's the new champion of the welterweight division, and appearing there will be a rubber match, which makes a whole lot of sense. Maybe screwing Roy McDonald, but still makes sense to have a rubber match because these two guys have beat each other for the title. Hendricks beating Lawler in the first match in about March, and I didn't see that one, and I think the reviews on here too. And Lawler won the second one recently at UFC 181. I didn't see that one because I was busy kicking as usual. So that's what's going to happen to Cerrone. You know, if he wants another fight against the champion, he wants a title shot, he needs a more dominating performance. You know, the first fight wasn't so good, but then his next fight, he needs a more dominating performance. Like I said, Lawler did the same thing. His first fight back after losing to Hendricks was horrible, not a good performance. But his second match, it was more dominant performance. And that was the fight that got him the fight against Hendricks, the rematch. So I think that's what could happen to Cerrone. This match, he won, but not by decisive, dominating fashion. But I think the next fight, he needs to come out swinging. He needs to have a very dominant performance to prove that he does deserve a title shot. The only good thing about this is he ended Myles Jury's undefeated streak. And as we know by the subtitle, it wasn't the only undefeated streak that ended tonight. 2.0 for that fight as well. Maybe 2. I'll give it 2.2. Just because that third round was kind of interesting. But still, not a lot of excitement in the first 4 fights. You know, some okay action, but not much excitement. That's what's been lacking in most UFC pay-per-views. Every time we view UFC pay-per-views, it's mostly the same thing. Most of it on the card is not exciting. Just okay action, but not much excitement. But speaking of a fight that did deliver, the only fight on the main card delivered both decent action and excitement. The big fight we've all been waiting for the UFC Light Heavyweight Championship. Jon Bones Jones defending against Daniel Cormier. Now, they were supposed to fight in September, as we all know. Bonesy was supposed to fight Gustafsson at first. Alexander Gustafsson, after Bonesy was trying to relent from, he was trying to pussy out the rematch against Gustafsson. He signed up for that match that was originally going to take place in September. Then Gustafsson got injured, and Cormier took over. And the hype on the fight in September was big, especially the press conference when they had a fight. And got fined for it too. But then Bonesy got injured and made the fight happen now, instead of back in September. Which is, to me, a blessing in disguise because I wasn't able to see that pay-per-view that they were going to fight in September. Because, once again, I had a gig. But tonight, I didn't have a gig. That's why I'm making this review. And like I said, of all pay-per-views to see, for the first time, seeing UFC in a long time at a sports ball, I had to go to Dave & Buster's tonight because it was packed to fuck. Because this fight was hyped to hell. You know what I mean? And sometimes you get these big fights that get delayed after a while, and the hype isn't there that originally was there before he got injured. But the hype continued. You know, it still built up hype. They got it on the press conference again. They almost fought in the hotel lobby, and they were threatening to fight process if anything happened in the weigh-ins. But what surprised me though, they touched gloves to begin the fight. I did not expect them to touch gloves. But to the fight itself, it was a fight we all thought it was going to be. A fucking brawl. A war. These two guys were just slugging it out. And it was a tough fight. Very tough fight. Cormier, at least he did more than any other previous Bones challengers. Like, all of Bones challengers just stood there and just got their ass pummeled. Like what happened during Bonesy's last title defense against Glover Teixeira. He just pounded on him. Glover had no offense at all. But at least Daniel had some offense. Yes, he got taken down a few times. For the first time in his career, he got taken down. In the first round, he got taken down. But these guys were just going back and forth. This was the brawl. This was the war. But I think Bonesy was more of the aggressor in the fight. You know, that's why that still remaining champion after 5 rounds was Bonesy, Jon Bones Jones, because Daniel Cormier did well in the fight. But like what happened when Johnny Hendricks took on GSP, and a lot of people thought Hendricks should have won the fight against GSP back in 2013. But Hendricks was the aggressor, kind of, but he did not put the champion in any danger. He didn't put him in a predicament. That's what happened with Cormier. Despite Cormier going forward and being somewhat aggressive and giving Jonesy some big shots and a couple of takedown attempts, especially in the end of the third round. Cormier did not put Jones in any danger of losing, despite a valiant effort. I'll give Cormier credit. He took the fight to Bonesy, but not enough to get the title off of him, even though the crowd was certainly in his favor. A little bit of lulls, a little man hugging, but still, these two guys were just brawling. They were just slugging it out. It was a slugfest, as expected. It was back and forth action, very tough. But like I said, Bonesy retained because, like I said, Cormier, despite his best efforts, he got some good shots in, but they were not, they didn't put the champion in any danger. It wasn't, his shots didn't put Jonesy, his punches didn't threaten Bonesy. He didn't, get a big knockout blow down to the ground. He had his neck a few times. He tried for submission and a couple of takedowns. It was kind of weird to see Bonesy take down Cormier, because Cormier is this Olympian wrestler. To see Bonesy take him down first was kind of interesting. And Cormier didn't take him down at all. He did get one takedown in the end of the 5th round, but Jonesy got right back up after that takedown attempt from Cormier. And Cormier was going into this fight undefeated, 15-0. But as I kind of alluded to, and almost going to spoil the ending, well, hey, I put in a subtitle already. That Jones defeated Cormier. Undefeated streak retained. Undefeated streak ended for Cormier. He's 15-1. And like I said, Bonesy retained. 3.5. The fight in my mind saved the pay-per-view for me. It could have been more exciting. The fight was great, but it could have been more physical. But still, for what it was the fight we all wanted. The fight we expected. Just a ball. And I love the ending. I like the ending. During the end of the 5th round, with 10 seconds left, I think Bonesy had a fake out on Cormier. In 10 seconds left, Bonesy put his hands up in the air. He's like, yay! And then Cormier was distracted, and Cormier got nailed by Bonesy. They brought, even Gaudinot almost got hit. That was a funny ending. See, Cormier got suckered in, and then after the end of the fight, John Jones did a DX crotch chop at the end, in even his post-match interview. He was like, so I'm being classless during the DX chop, but I just hate Cormier. So, and who's next for Bonesy? Well, I think the only guy that I think could be the next challenger if he wins some good fights, Anthony Rumble Johnson. He's back. He's out of suspension. He's got a fight against Gustafsson. I think Rumble Johnson will get a shot. But I think next up should be Gustafsson, because he was supposed to be the one that get the shot against Jones back in September before he got injured. And Cormier took a slot. So I think Gustafsson, he needs to win over Rumble. They're fighting in a few weeks. And I think in the back of Gustafsson's mind, he needs to beat Rumble to prove that he should be the number one contender again. He was a number one contender. They lost the shot when he got injured. He needs to prove once again that he should be the next guy to take on Bonesy and get a rematch against him. Bonesy being the first time. And like I said, they were supposed to fight again until Gustafsson got injured. And Cormier got in there. You know the story and everything about how this fight came about. But I think Gustafsson should get the next shot. And the only way that I think, like I said, that Gustafsson should get the shot is a decisive victory over, not just a victory over Rumble, but a decisive, dominant victory. Like Donald Cerrone, some would say, Donald Cerrone should get a shot against Anthony Pettis. But after he gets a more dominant win. His win tonight wasn't dominant. It was an okay win, but it wasn't dominant. It wasn't decisive. That's what I think is going through the back of the mind of Gustafsson. Not only does he want to win, he wants a big win, a decisive, dominating victory over Rumble to get the next shot against Bonesy. But like I said, Rumble should get a shot eventually. But first off, Gustafsson should get the next shot. Because he was in line until he got injured. So there you go. 3.5 main event. Bonesy. John Bones Jones retaining the UFC Light Heavyweight Championship in a very intense and physical fight, as we all expected it to be, against Daniel Cormier. So there you go. Of course, the next pay-per-view. As of right now, I am going to watch the next UFC pay-per-view. UFC 183 on January 31st. Of course, Super Saturday with the return of Anderson Silva. And speaking of my thoughts on that, Silva, when it comes to Silva and his potential of being a champ again, I've been talking to this with my friend about Silva. He does not deserve a shot after winning the first fight. Because if he ends up beating Nate Diaz, I know a lot of people would be like, if he beats Diaz, it's like, oh, Silva's back. He's going to get the next shot against the champion Weidman. In my mind, Silva does not deserve anything until he wins his second fight. That proved that the first fight against Diaz was a fluke. That's my opinion. And me and my friend have shared the same opinion. Silva should at least win 2 fights before winning a title shot against Weidman. That's my opinion. Because if he beats Diaz, people will think it's a fluke. He needs to prove that if he does beat Diaz, he does to prove that it wasn't a fluke when he beats somebody else. That's my opinion when it comes to Silva. Silva should not get a title shot unless he wins 2 fights, and decisive ones at that, to prove once again that he is the Silva of old. I mean, 1 fight won't dictate a title shot. You need to win more than 1 fight decisively to get a title shot, and that goes for Silva. He does not deserve an automatic rematch if he beats Diaz. That's what I'm trying to say. He needs to win not just the Diaz fight, but another fight as well to prove that if he does beat Diaz, it wasn't a fluke. That's my opinion when it comes to the Silva situation. So there you go. We'll see what Silva does on July 31st. I'm very anxious to see how he's going to do. You know, going through his strangeless comeback after that devastating and just grueling and just heart-wrenching and cringe-worthy foot injury in 2013. So very interested to see how Silva returns and how he fails in this first match back. So that's it for UFC 182 review for Saturday, January 3rd from Las Vegas, Nevada. Once again, 6.5 out of 10, just because the main event was the only good thing in the entire fight. As expected, the hype lived up to it. The fight lived up to the hype, but the undercard was weak. At least the main event was awesome. Let's see if 183, the entire card's good, not just the main event. That's the thing with UFC. They need the pay-per-view cards are inconsistent, in my opinion. There's like one good fight, and the rest is just mishmash of average to good. So let's see how they do it in UFC 183 if it's a more consistent pay-per-view from top to bottom. You know, not just the main event's good, but every fight is good. That's what they need. That's what Bellator thinks better these days. They'll be better cards. It's more consistent. That not just the main event's the best fight. The undercard's good too. So they're going to see how they do it at UFC 183. Happy New Year, everybody. Like I said, this was my first UFC review in months, and the first review of the year for UFC, and my first review period of 2015, and my first video of the year as well. So once again, Happy New Year, Happy 2015. With that in mind, y'all been attacked by the review from Zach. Thank you very much for watching. See you later. Yeah.